Welcome back, everybody, to the Wrestling Chatter. So we are more than a little half year away, or half year done with 2020. A lot of people will say 2020 had its ups and downs, but as always, pro wrestling is still there. And much like many places, WWE released their half year awards, and they released their top 10 matches of 2020 so far. Now, a little controversial, some may say, some may not say, but we're going to talk about one by one, not one by one, but I'm going to name one by one. We got number 10, Matt Riddle versus Timothy Thatcher in the NXT Fight Pit. We have Keith Lee versus Adam Cole, Great American Bash at number 9. We have the men's and the women's Money in the Bank match. We have number 7, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair from WrestleMania 36. WrestleMania 36. Number 6 is Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins from Money in the Bank. Number 5, Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles from SmackDown for the vacant Intercontinental Championship. Number 4, the men's Royal Rumble match from back in January. Number 3, the triple threat match with Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai at In Your House Takeover. Number 2, the greatest wrestling match ever, Edge versus Randy Orton. And number 1, which is a little coincidental and ironic because it's not really a match, but that's what you guys are here for. Undertaker versus AJ Styles in the Boneyard match. Well, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. Flobo, we'll start off with you. Do you agree with the list? Do you agree, disagree? What do you guys think of the list?
Well, the first thing for me, I realized, wow, there's a lot of matches that were pretty good this year. You can't go wrong with that. But going through the top 10, the one that sticks out to me, and this may be a little bit of a hot take, even though I like the match, but that winner take all match at NXT, the North American title, and the NXT Championship, Adam Cole, Keith Lee, didn't quite hit it for me the way other matches of that caliber does. So to put that at number 9 is kind of surprising. But yeah, that someone told me those were 10 best matches. Generally speaking, there are some omissions. We'll get to that. I'm not too bad about that. I'm cool.
Yeah, I'm with you, Flobo. I think there's a few, like every match on here is great. And what I love about lists like this is it makes you stop and realize just how good we have it as wrestling fans. There are 10 great lists, like matches here. And the first thing I think of is, what about all these other great matches? We need to appreciate, I think, more in the moment just how great wrestling is when we have it. Because there's been a ton of banger matches this year, even though a lot of people, I think, would complain about this year. We've actually been getting tons of matches. I think the only complaint I'd have about any of these is that maybe they wouldn't be as memorable later down the line as others would be. That's where I look at like a Matt Riddle versus Thatcher. Great match, but I feel like in 6 months it'll be sort of forgotten as opposed to others. As far as the Boneyard match go, yes, it should be number 1. It's a match. It should be number 1. It should be number 1 for the year already because I have a feeling that match is kind of going to be what defines this year anyway. So I love that at number 1.
But do you guys think that WWE already kind of buried itself by not having the greatest wrestling match ever not at number 1?
They did the best they could. I mean, the greatest wrestling match is still a wrestling match. The Boneyard is an experience of all sensory overloads. That's fine. I don't think anyone can argue that. You can say the Boneyard, especially if it's truly the last match with Undertaker, will always supersede an actual wrestling match with moves and holes.
The biggest thing I see with this is I would say something like the Rumble doesn't count for a list like this because it's too big. Like the Rumble would be number 1 every year or number 1, 2, or 3 every year if it was on these kind of lists. But if we're going to have the Rumble, then I think it is a travesty that it's not the Women's Rumble that's listed here. I thought the Women's Rumble was far superior than the Men's Rumble this year.
What? Look, wrestling-wise, you're absolutely right. The Women's Rumble is pretty solid, but I've never seen a Rumble match before play in 2 halves to perfection like this year. The who's gonna get rid of Brock Lesnar? He's going through everybody. Then, will Drew McIntyre do it? Was a perfect unofficial torch passing. It won't be done again because it will compare to this year, and especially being the one of the last major pay-per-views before the lockdown. I gotta say, man, for this time, maybe only the men's over the women's.
Look, I get what you're saying. I think the men's Rumble was great. I just think the women's Rumble was better. I think that they both told great stories, but every single step of the way with the women's Rumble I thought was absolutely amazing. And if you're going to put the men's Rumble up there, I think the Women's Rumble should be higher, but at the very least, the Women's Rumble should be mentioned if the Men's Rumble is going to be on there. So that's the biggest flaw that I see standing out personally to me. I think the Firefly Funhouse should be on there. If we're adding these cinematic matches, now I know they say that might not even be a match, but that was a story that was interesting. And if you're going to give points for the last Undertaker match, that may very well be the last John Cena match. Doesn't that get points as well?
Well, over Edge and Orton? No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
I'm saying like at the number 10 spot, maybe not the number 1 or anything like that, but it deserves to be in that top 10.
I got some spirited choices, but that takes the cake. As much as I love that match, I didn't think it would be top 10. Yeah, it's all cake. That one is pretty interesting. A spirited choice, as my old professor would say.
Well, Flobo, do you think there were any things that weren't on the list or should have belonged on the list? I know Jack mentioned the Women's Rumble match, the Firefly Funhouse match. Was there anything that stood out to you where we're like, what? How is that not on the top 10 list of the WWE best match of the year so far?
Let me count the ways, George. What the oft forgotten about event Worlds Collide. That four-way dance for the Cruiserweight Championship and the main event, Imperium versus Undisputed Era, is not on the list. Maybe I'm a bit of a super fan of Bayley, but that Fatal 5-Way at Mania was pretty awesome storytelling-wise because they got a way to get Bayley over. It reestablished Tamina. We got Lacey Evans as a hard-hit competitor. That's on my personal top 10, so I was a little bit miffed when I saw that. And in exchange, I would drop the Timothy Thatcher Matt Riddle match. Great match, but I really feel like it's a top 10 match because of the technical achievement of having that cage in that production studio as opposed to the actual in-ring action.
I have a few I'd like to add in, and I can just say them, or we could break them down one by one. I know we have a time issue, but I agree with Flobo. I also think McIntyre versus Rollins was great. Don't know if it was top 10, especially when we are forgetting, and this is a travesty as well, Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic at TakeOver Oregon. That was an incredible match that should be listed, as well as, I'm just going to list them off. I don't care. I'm just going to go for it. Broserweights versus Grizzled Young Vets to end the Dusty Classic. That was a barn burner. We also, forget Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy's matches at the very beginning of the year, and Rey Mysterio versus Andrade in a ladder match for the U.S. title on Raw. Another really good match that I think deserves at least a conversation over some of these ones in here. Again, they're all good in here, but looking at like Lee versus Cole, Riddle versus Thatcher, and personally McIntyre Rollins, good matches, but I feel like I'd put a couple of those four in there beforehand. But it's hard to argue a lot, like Orton Edge, Flair, Ripley, Shirai. I think those were great. And Bryan versus Styles are great.
That one was okay. I like that one. It was above average. Those commercial breaks killed it for me. And I understand that in the future there will be no commercial breaks when you watch it on the network. But as the match was presented, that totally killed the vibe for me.
Ripley Flair in 2 matches. Same with AJ Styles. But Ripley Flair 2 matches together on the top 10 list. Does that say something about those two?
Absolutely. I mean, Flair's one of the best to ever do it, whether you like it or not. And Ripley has incredible potential. It comes down to whether or not she has a lot more of those matches in her career, because she has to be on TV to have those matches, if I'm being that guy.
Yeah.
I do think that Rhea Ripley and Charlotte was the best, quote-unquote, wrestling match of WrestleMania both nights, and I do think that Firefly Funhouse does belong on that list as well. I think that was one of the great matches. But we're going to see in around 6 months to see if these matches still hold up in 2020. Obviously, as of right now, we're in July, and we're going to see in August, September, October, November, December if there are going to be maybe some better matches. Obviously, we got SummerSlam coming up in a few weeks. We got Survivor Series. We got obviously other pay-per-views. We're going to see if these matches hold it up, and as always, we're going to be here to talk all about them. But in the meantime, I want you guys to put yourselves over.
Oh, yeah. You can follow me at Flobo Boyce across all social media and check me out at Flobito.com. What? What I do?
Yeah, you stepping all over my gimmick, Flobo. You can find me at jackcfarmer.com as well as at RealJackFarmer across all social media. You can also check me out drinking a cup of coffee from www.thebrosters.com. Make sure to use promo code BROCODE1 to get a discount, as well as a little bit of extra swag.
Hey, it's Christy Olson. If you like this video as much as I did, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends so they can join in the wrestling chatter too. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow the show on Twitter at TW Chatter. See you next time.